there was a person that watched one of the first videos we did when we first started working together. Who knows? It might have been that very first GBP one, Google Business Profile one, and he reached out to me, and we ended up not working together then because he just had like a little problem. But he kept watching the channel apparently. Over like 6 months, and then he reached out to me like about a month and a half ago maybe, and yeah, that turned into a pretty good contract. So yeah.
So hey guys, in today's video, I have a special guest with me, Sam. We've been working together for the past 7 months to scale his YouTube channel, and in today's video, we're just gonna be talking a little bit more on how he grew his YouTube channel, talking a little bit more on how you can also use it to generate clients, generate leads, and yeah, glad to have you on, Sam. How's it been so far?
It's been good. It's been good. Yeah, I actually just celebrated a birthday last week, so I'm feeling really old, but besides that, I'm doing good.
Glad to hear that. Glad to hear. Happy birthday! So, but yeah, hopping into the first question. So I just want to talk a little bit more on what actually got you to start YouTube in the first place, and what's the reason behind it.
Yeah, that's a good question. I mean, for me, I love learning stuff. One of my core values is lifelong learner, and one of the first places I go when I want to learn something is YouTube. If it's figuring out how to build a website for small businesses, I started on YouTube. If it's trying to figure out how to get my dog to take her medicine, I go to YouTube. And so I just figured like, there's probably a lot of small business owners that are scrolling through TikToks and Instagram Reels and all this other stuff, right? But I bet there's a ton of people that are on YouTube. And so I think I'm just going to start there. And one of my web design mentors kind of give us a challenge of like, just put 10 videos out there and just see what happens. And I think at the time I had like, 12 subscribers. Each video is getting about 10 views per. And after those 10 videos, I pretty much gave up. And that was around the start of 2023. Please don't go find those videos. They're still on YouTube and they're still bad. But no, some of them are actually pretty good. But anyway, yeah, the sound quality's bad, the lighting's bad, everything's bad. But, some of the content's okay. But yeah, I figured if I could do it right, I could get in front of a small business owner that wants to use our services and that we could eventually work together. So that was kind of the beginning of it.
Mhm. Gotcha. That's a really interesting story. A lot of people do have this really beginning interest on YouTube, and that's how they start out, right? But yeah, I also want to ask a little bit more about, during at that time, were you just mainly relying on other platforms to also generate clients? I know that YouTube was also a thing that you were thinking about, as you just mentioned. But there other outreach methods, other yeah, other methods that you were using in order to generate your clients and leads?
Yeah, I mean, it would take well over a year before I'd eventually get a client from YouTube. And so, I had to rely on other sources. And so for me, I'm a big fan of in-person networking. I think it works. And so, I would show up to networking events, eventually got a part of like a referral networking group in my town, and, just kept talking to people, shaking hands, having coffees, and growing my business kind of the old-fashioned way. But I always had this idea in my head that like, man, there's all this technology out there. There's got to be a way to scale this a little bit. And so, as time went on, I decided, I should probably start getting back into this YouTube thing and see if there's something to be had here.
Gotcha, gotcha. So yeah, I guess just bouncing off of that, when we were working together, I just want to talk a little bit more on the kind of results that you've seen from YouTube because I remember when we were talking about, when we were working together, that you managed to sign a lot more people up for your community, and also you landed that contract deal that was around $18,000 in terms of the value. So yeah, can you tell me a little bit more and walk me through that and the results that we've managed to generate for you?
Yeah, I think I was probably a very difficult client because I have kind of two audiences that watch our channel.
Hmm.
So over 2024, I did what I think a lot of small business owners do, and I started to try to figure it out myself. Occasionally, I'd reach out for help because I knew some people that knew stuff about like video editing. I knew some people that knew stuff about the YouTube algorithm a little bit from their own channels, and I was able to, do that, and that helped get my channel from like, you know, 40 subscribers to like 400 subscribers or something like that. And I was able to get even a couple leads that first year doing that by myself. But I can tell you, I mean, I'm not kidding, Jason. It was probably hundreds of hours, trying to figure out like what's the right kind of title and, how does YouTube SEO work and like what is a good, engagement rate and all these metrics that I don't understand. And so, when we started to work together, one of the biggest questions you asked me at the start is like, who are you trying to attract? Because you can really, you know, your main goal is to talk to one audience, right? And so, we have high ticket done for you local SEO services. That's, the most profitable thing that we do as part of our business. And so that's who I wanted to attract. And I really didn't want to get distracted because I think if anybody gets in front of a camera and starts talking to an iPhone, they feel like they're important all of a sudden. And so for me, I started to talk to other web designers, other local SEO people, and I started my own community doing that. And that's actually been really cool to have that as kind of like a passion project. But I wanted to not do that as much. And so our goal was to actively seek these clients and to kind of passively seek those clients because we do get a pretty even split of people that are local business owners trying to do their own SEO and like SEO providers trying to level up their skills. And so I would say over the 6 months, the smaller ones, which are harder to measure because sometimes I can't track back to the video and stuff, but I would guess, I'm just guessing here, but I think we probably got about 10. Probably around 10 would be a safe number, maybe up to 15 members of the community. And to give you an example, most of those were on like a discount, but that's probably about $700 per year for each one of those people. So think about that. So that's pretty cool. And also some people just on the courses only tier. So like just being able to get exposure to these people is amazing, and to know that like a good chunk, because we're only at about 50 people right now, like a good chunk of the audience came from that or was nurtured from the channel. Um, that's a really big intangible that you can't see. And then as far as like big ticket deals go, like we were talking about at the very start of the call, we had one that happened more recently, just took a little bit more nurturing. But along the way, we had a very big client. This would have been our biggest client ever. So they ended up signing a contract for well over $15,000. They have multi locations and all that stuff. And so that was a pretty cool deal to get, and that was all from YouTube. I remember getting on the sales call. The guy said, he's like, "I've been watching your videos all day." He's like, "I just watched 6 videos before this," and he was pretty ready to go, and we just had to talk about the strategy and all that. And then more recently, we had a smaller contractor come on, and he had reached out in his early days, finding one of our videos that was about helping something pretty basic, and it just wasn't a good fit. He ended up being able to find somebody that can help him out for like $100 on Fiverr or something like that. He got over the hump and kept growing his business, but he kept watching the channel. He was engaged, and kept watching, and we were able to nurture him with those videos, and eventually he reached back out. Did the free strategy video, which is usually we do that as like our lead gen in the middle. And next thing you know, we sit down and he signed one of our biggest contracts to date, for a year, and that contract's worth almost 15,000, and so a
Awesome.
good deal, and we're looking to really grow his business, and so I'm excited about that one, and so yeah.
That's crazy to hear. All that results just from literally just from YouTube, right? And all those contract deals, even like what we talked about earlier in the beginning of the call, right? Before the recording even started, where that business owners starting from the literal first video to be uploaded together, continuing to watch over time, and then finally being nurtured to actually hop on that call with you and deciding to start working with you there. That's crazy to imagine that even YouTube videos that were uploaded around 6 months ago can still provide insane amount of value. And yeah, I guess that also then leads me into the next question I do want to talk about. So when we were working together, would you know how much of the percentage of leads that were coming from YouTube compared to the other places you were able to generate them from?
Well, I mean, when it comes to like the local SEO services, that we do still get a vast majority of our audience or from our paid clients are coming through local networking,
Hmm.
referral group, and all that stuff. And so also our own SEO. So I sat down and did the numbers. This was right before that last client signed on. Um, so it makes it a little squishier. I'm gonna try to like ballpark the numbers if we add that in. So
Hmm.
I would say probably about 50% of our clients, maybe even 60, probably 60 would be a better number, are coming from in-person networking. About 20% are coming from SEO, like our own SEO, showing up for like SEO Bend Organ and things like that. And about 20% are showing up from YouTube. Um, which is pretty good. I mean, that's a heck of a lot better than zero, right? So that's a big chunk of our gross revenue this year that I don't think would have been there otherwise. So that's pretty cool.
Of course, of course. I mean, 20% is still a really large number, and it's great to hear that it's contributing a lot to your revenue growth and your business scaling as well. But yeah, I guess that also then leads me to the next question, where I want to talk more about the content creation side of things, because this is quite a big question I get all the time from a lot of agency owners or coaches that want to learn a little bit more. So can you tell me or walk me through the process of what it was like before we started working together, when you were creating content just by yourself, and did it and then how did it change after we started working together on your channel?
Well, when I first started to do YouTube, it was a total guessing game, right? I was just like, well, I want to talk about this, so I'm going to talk about this. And then luckily, like I said, I reached out for help. I started to do my own homework and I started to realize like, oh, like there needs to be a bit of a strategy to this. And so, we kind of I like to call it guessio. We were doing like YouTube guessio where we were like, I think people are searching this, so let's make a video about this. And we even had like a content calendar with my first video editor, who's my old buddy. Shout out to Liam if
Mhm.
he's watching this video. And then I got to work with a video basically a guy that owns a small production company in Bend. We just worked on a couple projects here and there. Very, high quality stuff because he would come out with his professional equipment and all that stuff. And I knew I couldn't, at the time, I could not afford Bruno on a monthly basis. Plus, he wasn't really trying to make YouTube videos either, right? He wants to do like contracts with, say, like real estate agents and stuff in town and create content for them. But because he'd grown his channel up to 5,000 subscribers, he kind of gave me some trickle down knowledge. And so that kind of helped me be like, oh, like, okay, here's how we could target, specific keywords. I learned about vidIQ. I learned a couple other things and started to learn about getting my hooks down. And that was the first time I ever had like a script template to go off of. And so I had been learning things and learning the value of all this, right? I think had you reached out to me before then, I would have been like, what's the point? And I think one of the big things that you really showed me is that, right now, the way YouTube's algorithm's working, which is going to keep changing, just like Google's algorithm, is that there is almost this like, there's this peak that happens in the early days, right? Where it's like the video either sticks and stays or it peaks and goes off, right? And it's like those still are around maybe, but like your best bet is to get a video this to stick and stay. And that doesn't happen with all of them, right? We didn't always have
Mhm.
bangers, but we had a lot of videos that got to we had a handful of videos that got to over 1,000 views, which was not normal for the channel. And so, your content creation process of starting with the ideation and especially like using like inspiration videos, just like we do for like building websites and stuff like that. It's like, you don't want to just start from scratch. You don't want to just be guessing. So it's like, look, this video framework worked over here in, say, the ad space or in the YouTube growth space or in the social media space. This could work in local SEO. And so, it's like we weren't stealing stuff bar for bar, but we were using those things as inspiration. And so that helped me like conceptualize like, oh, okay. And then, you like in the early days were really coaching me of like, okay, shut the hell up, say it in 30 seconds, and then let's get to the first point and get to the second point and get to the third point. And so that was really cool. And so, I think not only did I learn like the high level, like how like the anatomy of a good YouTube video for my channel could look, but then, you went from like ideation to like I like to call it like a script template, right? It wasn't a word for word script that I read off of because I don't like videos that, you can obviously tell somebody's reading a script that Claude wrote like that. Those videos are silly. Like, why don't I just go to Claude and get the information from that person, right? But anyway, and then it's like, and then you would also provide feedback after the video was recorded. And you also gave me the flexibility to keep working with my video editor, which was nice because she's kind of a part of my team. And so that was a nice way for us to, give her more monthly recurring revenue, and work together. And she got like really good over that 6 month span, like growing. And so I used to hear from people that would be watching the channel for a long time, they're like, your videos have gotten really good over the last couple months. And I would constantly say, yeah, I'm working with a YouTube coach. And they're like, what the hell is a YouTube coach? And I'm like, you want to learn more? Didn't get any bites on that, but,
Oh
um,
man.
but it, I mean, I think it was massively helpful. And kind of like we were talking about earlier, like I think I got my channel up to maybe 400 or 500 subscribers on my own, but we are to this day, like going from that number to approaching 2,000, basically with your work, like it changes the game. Like I think people think, like yeah, you shouldn't be married to subscriber count, but you get more the more subscribers you have, the more of like a warm audience you have, the more exposure you get with each video. So it totally changes the game. And so it's like you need to be thinking about so many things. And so yeah, the content creation process just became very streamlined, and I felt like I could just, walk away, show up, record the video, and again, knock my microphone over. Um, and then I could just show back up and, it would basically be done and, provide feedback where I wanted to. And that was what I was looking for from YouTube. I wasn't looking for another chore, which is what it felt like before. It felt like it was a real time suck and I just couldn't afford that. And so it was either like, I need to figure out how to make this work for me, or I need to spend this energy somewhere else. And so the content creation process was one of the biggest parts that I liked about this because it felt like there was a flow and I was getting to stay in my zone of genius, which I think as an agency owner or like a coach, like that's where you need to stay. And so, you want to get your information out there, but you don't want to spend all this time doing the research on the topics that you need to be doing or structuring the video just right. It's also good to just have a second set of eyes on the video. And then also, I don't want to schedule the damn video and put the little tags in it either. And so, like, having that part be done for me as well was also really nice. So it was like I got to stay right where I wanted to.
Awesome, awesome. Glad to hear that. But yeah, I'm really happy to hear that the content creation process was significantly a lot easier for yourself. And yeah, you're right. There's a lot that goes into, scaling a YouTube channel. And talking a little bit more about the views and subscribers, I can guarantee you that, like I already told you a long time ago about this, but a lot of them are quite qualified. A lot of them are probably other SEO specialists or even local business owners that return and tune into all the videos that you're uploading on your YouTube channel. But yeah, again, really glad to hear that the content creation process got a lot easier for yourself. But yeah, I guess just the last question I do want to ask you before we hop off and end the video. If another local SEO specialist, of course, not to create more competition, or another business owner, agency owner, or coach that just wants or is thinking about starting a YouTube channel and just want to get into content creation, generate their own leads or their own clients, what would you say about doing the entire process?
Well, the first thing you should do is you should work with Jason, of course. No. If you really want to get into local SEO, I think there's a massive opportunity to show up on YouTube because there's only a handful of us that are even making videos right now. So I do think that that is a big opportunity. And in my community, Local SEO Academy, where I teach people how to do local SEO, we do talk about sales, and I talk about outreach, and I talk about YouTube because I think it's a good exposure channel. You're getting introduced to all these people that don't know you. If you can upload content on a weekly basis, you could be getting introduced to 20 new people every week. Even if that's it, like, how else are you going to go out and meet 20 new people every week, especially if you're an introvert? And so that's amazing. And there's not enough females in our space. There's a lot of females that do local SEO, but there's not enough that show up on YouTube. And so I would love to see, more people show up there, just to get more representation in that sense. But um, I think my biggest advice to anybody that's trying to get more clients on YouTube is make sure, like Jason told me at the beginning, to keep talking to your ideal client profile. Figure out who your ICP is and talk directly to them. Say stuff like like talk through the camera. Pretend like there is one of your clients on the other side of this iPhone or fancy, mirrorless camera that you're staring at right now, trying to make that video, right? And it's like if you can do that, if you can show up, if you can be genuine and helpful and authentic and actually provide good value, 99% of people will never work with you, and that's okay. Hopefully, we got to help those people along the way. But if even a sliver of that 1% actually pays for your high ticket services, it's all going to be worth it. And so, I guess that would be my advice is like just show up, be authentic, be you, be funny, or be serious, like whatever your thing is, be that, and then get help because you are about to waste 100 hours on YouTube trying to figure this out on your own when you could just invest some money and do it a different way. And that's what I did, and I'm really grateful that I did.
Awesome, awesome. Hey, glad to have you on, and thanks for answering all the questions that we have. But yeah, again, this is Sam. If you want to check out his YouTube channel, I'll link it in the description for this video. And if you want to watch more of his content, especially if you're a local business owner, definitely check it out. But yeah, this is it for this video. And thanks again, Sam, for hopping on this call and I guess this video, just talking a little bit more about your YouTube journey.
Yeah, no problem. It's super fun. Thanks for having me.
Awesome, awesome. Appreciate it.